Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Welcome back to Adobe Live. I'm Evan Abrams. I'm here to confront you with a video challenge. Well, to challenge you with a video challenge. It shouldn't be too confronting. We're going to be getting into some custom transitions using Adobe After Effects that you can then deploy in Premiere as a kind of mogrt or motion graphics template that'll help you bridge between two pieces of footage, I think, in a very nice looking way. This is a look that is inspired by Selling Sunset. We'll say a kind of popcorn show in which you enjoy rich people buying fancy houses. So when we talk about a classy transition, we're probably not talking about working class transition, I suppose. Anyway, all of that aside, we're going to be getting into After Effects. We're going to be using some features in there like track mats, like shape layers. We're going to be using blending modes. So if you're new to After Effects, if any of this seems new and scary to you, let me know in the comments and I'll try to help you out. And of course, folks hanging out in the chat today, Umacorn, good to see you. Oh, hey, Rick H, what's going on? How's everything over there at Zed Technologies? Gareth Williams, Penny Doodles, Cody Bear holding it down. Hello. So good to see. Oh, Oliver Andrews. Hello. So like I say, if you have any troubles at all, let me know in the chat. I'll try to help you out. And at the end of all of this, we want to see what you make with what we show off around here. So come on over to the Discord. Come on over to the Premiere Discord. We want to see what you're making. Render off some stuff and enjoy. Share it with us. We'll look at it, on Friday. Coming in after lunch here. So without further ado, what are we making? Let's go have a look. Have a look at the screen here. Okay, good. My face is indeed not blocking a lot of the interface, so we're nailing it. Like I say, we're going to be making a transition, and this transition, as all transitions do, you got to go from an A footage to a B footage, and there's maybe some kind of bridge in between, some kind of fancy elements coming in over top. And this one, certainly quite fancy. Now, this transition plays best when you are using footage that is either moving forward or moving backwards or orbiting in some capacity. So we want movement in the footage, which will help sell some of the movement that you see in the transition itself. So that's probably the first thing to get out of the way, that when you're thinking about designing custom transitions, you have to know that the type of footage that's going to be put in there will have a dramatic impact on how it feels. But in general, there's not that much going on in here. We have a few shape layers, 6 of them, one for each slice of the video here, which corresponds to 6 copies of the objects themselves, of that footage B that are being mixed in together. Now, you could do this with masks. You could do this with all manner of different methodologies. This one I happen to like because it allows us to build things up a little bit at a time. So we take little baby steps towards where we're trying to get to. So without further ado, let's do this from scratch. Let's start it right from the beginning. So step 1, you want to think about your footage, what kind of stuff you're going to be bringing together. And I know that I want this to work on 29.97 type footage, so that type of frame rate, if it's going to be used in that type of reality TV stuff. So I've got a couple of clips in here that are running at that frame rate. So I'm going to grab one of them here, and they're HD. I'm just going to drag it on down to the new composition button. That's going to create a composition that is the same frame size and frame rate as the footage itself. So we know that we are nice and conformed, right? We're conforming our stuff together. Now, it doesn't really matter when we start this, but we're going to give ourselves enough sort of padding. So let's start our journey at 5 seconds so we get enough time to enjoy things. If we were going to be swapping in footage, different footage later, you probably want to give yourself substantial lead time and then substantial out time, because the way this will be deployed is people are going to be putting in different footage for A and B, so we want to give them enough padding on either side to enjoy those clips themselves. Now, what we want to do is we want to start to bring in the various elements that are going to transition stuff. So I'm going to create a shape layer. I'm going to just double click on the rectangle tool, which will create a shape layer using the previous settings that I had for shape layers. And here we go. We now have, if I tap the U key twice, 1920 by 1080, and it's got a 6 pixel stroke around it. I'm going to take 1920, divide that by 6. Math is hard, so I let the computer do the math for me by just typing it into the property down there. And now we've got one of the wedges that we need. And I'm just going to drag this over a little bit, holding down the Command key. That's going to allow us to snap this element. So you'd snap it over here, snap it over there, snap it wherever you like. And if you're doing something modular like this, it's going to be a lot easier if we create one element and then duplicate that to make all the other elements. So from that end, what do we need to do with this element? Well, I'm going to call up its position, set a keyframe for that. And what is this going to do? Well, it's going to slide in from the side. So let's go ahead and give ourselves, I don't know, enough time here. I'm holding down Shift and hitting page up to give ourselves enough time, moving it over. And because we've clicked on the stopwatch, when we change the position of this thing, there we go, clunk, we've got that moving in. It's working out pretty well. I'm going to ease these. We're going to see how that feels. Feels a little bit better. I'm going to come into the graph editor, and we are observing down here what we would call a speed graph. So we can grab the influence handles of those keyframes, and we can maybe something a little bit more like this. Now, like I say, we want to get our influence curves on this feeling correct, because we're going to start duplicating this and making more of it as it comes in. Now, the other thing that we want this to do once it comes to rest, we don't need these bright borders anymore. So we're going to come in here, and I need to find the width. If you type into this search bar, you're going to find properties with that name. So stroke width, there it is. Set a little keyframe on that. Tap the U key. It'll bring up everything that we've got keyframes on. I'll move ahead a bit, and I'll bring that stroke width down to 0. So this panel is going to show up, and then the stroke around it is going to dissipate. Perfect. That's going to work out great. Now, what we're going to do, though, it's not this panel that I want to see. We want to see a different layer. We want to see different footage. So let's go ahead and grab maybe these trees here. I'm going to bring those trees on down like this. And the trees should only appear where this object appears. Now, there's a pretty quick way to do that. We can just come over here to the track mat column of things. Everybody's snapping at me in the chat. I like that. So we're going to come down to the toggle switches and modes if you don't see your track mat options, but hopefully you do see them. And then we are just able to pick whip from this to that. And you can see that the forest only shows up inside of, in this case, the alpha bounds of the other layer. Now, it doesn't matter sort of what order any of these things are in. That's not particularly important to us, because this could live anywhere in relation. This is a big change to the track mat settings, the track mat features. So if you're not familiar with that, hopefully this project will help get you familiar with it. But we've done it. We've created one of these things, and we're doing quite well. So one thing I want to do, though, I don't want to have many copies of this. I want to pre-compose this. Command-Shift-C, and we're going to call this footage B or clip B or something like that. We hit return on that. So everything about clip B, right? This is just a container that's going to hold this piece of stock footage. Then when we come back here, you can see, yes, indeed, if we were to swap out what's inside that container, every instance of that will be swapped out as well. So clip B, the composition now, just referencing this file or this shape layer, everything's looking good. We do want to actually still see this layer, so I'm going to poke its eye back on, but I'm going to change its mode to add. Now that means that we are adding the pixel information, which means that anything that is black becomes transparent and anything that is light simply remains light. So that's working out quite nicely. I got to give ourselves a thumbs up for that. And I want kind of a neat kind of glowing situation going around the outside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to the stroke here and click on the word stroke and change us into a gradient. Now you can change what that gradient is if you click over here. I'm going to get the gradient editor, clicking on this box, and you can see that you can set knots in here. Now, if you need to set new knots, you can just click in there and change the knots. This is one that I set up earlier. You can see we're going from bright to dark to bright to dark again. And if I stretch, you see these two little dots here. These are the start and end of that gradient. You see, if we stretch them out like that, we get this nice kind of shimmer that's going around. And I think that's working out quite nicely. Of course, this has been set to add, so when things are being added over top of each other, the gradient behaves in a slightly different way. But that's working out for me. I am enjoying how this is coming together. I might add to this a glow, so we're just going to deploy a stylized glow on top of this. And there we go. Now these things are really heating up, right? We're getting this nice hotness going on down there. So we might increase the intensity a little bit. We might bring the radius down, radius down, radius up, whichever you want to do. So play around with that. You'll get it exactly how you want. But the other thing we want is as this is as this is moving, we want this gradient to be shifting and changing. So we are going to find the start point and end point. I'm going to set some keyframes on those. Tap that U key again so we can bring these up. And let's see, right now, the start point and end point goes from this corner to this corner. I'm just going to adjust that to swap corners like so. And we're going to stretch those keyframes out to be like this. So as this is coming in, you see that it's doing this fun kind of a move around like this. So start point and end point shifting around. Hopefully you can see as they pass each other. It looks pretty nice. Now we might ease those, see how we feel about that. That does look pretty neat as it goes when it really switches. Like so. So anyway, we've got this going. Congratulations. We've done one piece of the puzzle, but right now it's only revealing the layer under it. We don't want that. So we are going to parent this clip B to that shape layer, like so. So now that piece is being moved like so. So that's working out quite nicely. Now, in terms of order of operations, you know what we're going to do? We're not going to do the parenting yet, but we will have to in the future. So don't worry about that. Now, we are going to name this. We're going to name this, say, L1, because this is on the left, and this is the first one of those. I am going to duplicate it, which is made L2. I'm going to call up its positions here, and come make sure that my playhead is right there. I select both the keyframes, click and drag like so, dragging this situation out. And we want to make sure that we are snapping these things to the edge, making sure we're snapping to the right feature like that. Now this panel is empty, but don't worry, it won't be for long. We'll fill it up with stuff. But we're going to get a third one, duplicate, call up its position, grab those, perform the exact same operation like this. So things are coming together. It's coming together. And you can see those are sliding out as a group before they dissipate like so. Now let's get the other side going on. Let's make that happen. So I'm going to select these all, duplicate them like this. Or, actually, let's do it one at a time so I don't get confused. So we're going to grab this one. I'm going to call this one R1. I'm going to actually change its color to red so that I can keep these nice and separate. Call up its position. And so it needs to be over a little bit like so. And its end state, or its start state rather, needs to be over on the other side, way over here. Now this is the time when you may wish to think about maybe flipping this thing around. So right now you can see all of the various rotations that are happening. So if I flip it over like this, see if that feels any better, or if I want to transform flip horizontally, see if we enjoy this. So they kind of counter each other in movement when the gradients are going around. So that's working out pretty well. Okay, got to move fast for the rest of these. So this is R2, and we're going to call up our positions on those. Select them, dragging over, snapping the stuff together, making sure we're snapping the stuff. There we go. And R3, call up those positions, moving them over like this. Okay, so now we've got these sort of barn doors that are closing. Oh, that's not going to do. Needs to tighten these together. There we go. So we've got 1, 2, 3 of these things that come together. It all locks together like that. So far, so good, right? Everything's coming together. Now we need to fill each of these So as I said, we've got clip B. We're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. So we'll get one more of those. And we want to make sure that they're all looking at the right thing. So let's go ahead and put them in order. So we've got L1 and R1. We've got L2 and R2, L3 and R3. Okay, good. And so let's start with from the top. Use R1 as your track mat and be parented to R1, right? This one here, use L1 as your track mat, be parented to L1. Same thing for the next one, right? So we are going to parent to our track mat R2, parent to R2, track mat to L2, parent to L2. I'm getting ahead. R1, L2. This is why you do things in order. Okay, this one's looking at L2. This one's looking at R3. This one's looking at L3. Okay, so there we go. The pieces have all come together. So it's R1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, and 3. So now if we play this back, yes, the doors are coming together clunk like that. Remember, we still want to see all of these so that we get to enjoy those lines coming together and fading. And I think it's working out so far. So far, so good, we would say. Now, don't worry, this is a bit of a confusing topic. It is a confusing idea. So if you need to play this back a few times, sometimes we all do. So I want to do a little parallaxing here. So I'm going to create a null object. I am going to parent all of these parts to that null object. Now the null object lives in the middle center. I'm going to make it yellow. And over the course of this whole animating in, I'm going to have this start a little bit scaled up. So it starts scaled up outside of the bounds. If I tap the U key to bring up everybody's keyframes, you're going to see all the keyframes from all the players in here. And let's see, maybe by this point, we'll have brought it together to 100% like that. So it is sort of come together a little bit thusly. Okay, there's a few more things that we need to do though. I want these not to all come in at the same time, but to be staggered. So these two, they're working out perfectly. They're happening at exactly the right time. The next two, let's shuffle them forward a little bit, see how we feel about this. So they're going to move forward a little bit. And then the next ones under it, they're going to shuffle forward a little bit more from that. So how do we feel about this? Clunk, 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 clunk. This is where you're going to want to play around a lot. Now, I've done it a certain way in the original. You don't have to conform to that if you don't want to. Do whatever feels right to you. But as you can see, eventually they all come together and those lines fade down and it all locks into place. You might want to even grab a bunch of these keyframes, hold down Option, grab the last one and stretch them out a little bit so that the last keyframes actually take a little bit longer to resolve in all of their acts. But then we end up with something like this. Looking pretty good, I gotta say. Looking pretty good. And so this takes place from here. Stack, stack, stack comes together. And then let's see. Let's have this whole thing last until 10, and then we'll clip it off there. So we're going to trim the comp to the work area. And this is what we've got. Things are coming together. Now, there's one more element that I included, and if you download the project files, you'll get to enjoy that little bit of embellishment that I added to the original, and that is a little bit of fractal noise in here. It's not an Evan Abrams project unless we get fractal noise in the mix, so we're just using this to kind of hide or gloss over how these things are starting to come together. So if we come back here to our creation, which is, it's this one, which we're going to call the template. We need to maybe deploy that down here. So we're going to go new, solid, make it the comp size, and we'll just set it here, and we will grab a fractal noise on top of this. We're going to increase the contrast a little bit, come into the transform, maybe scale it up. And the things that it does over time, right? We're affecting the scale and we are affecting the offset of it. So it's going to be sort of moving down and scaling in some way over time. So all of the transition comes together there. We can tell because you can see the pieces kind of sliding behind. And I'm just going to offset the turbulence so it seems like it's rolling down, and we're going to make the scale kind of come up a little bit like that. So let's just go ahead and see how that feels. Doesn't feel like much, right? Well, that's because we still need to use a directional blur onto it. So we're going to take that directional blur, really crank that up like this, and then we are going to switch its mode to add. We are going to also add onto this a curves adjustment. So by deploying the curves adjustment on here, we can then make this quite a bit more contrasted like so. So now we're getting these kind of ethereal lines coming through. That's exactly what we want. And then we will use maybe, let's see, take a bit of the green out, definitely take a lot of the blue out. So we're getting like that. Ooh, let's see. Yeah, definitely take some of the green out of there. And red, maybe we need a little bit less red in there. And so we're getting these kind of golden bars that are coming over top like so. And we'll probably, with this, fade this on and off. So the opacity will end at 0. The opacity will begin at 0. We're clicking on the keyframe over here to set the opacity, but here it will be the most chaotic, so it'll be up like this. Shimmer, shimmer, shimmer. So there's many ways you can do that. Like I say, check the original file and you'll find a lot of fun stuff in there. But how do we turn this into a template? Well, we want to go Window, Essential Graphics. This will bring up our Essential Graphics. This is the bridge between worlds, the Bifrost that will take us from After Effects to Premiere. You will change your primary to be template, the one that you're creating. You'll give it a name, classy template, and we need to start putting things in there. So I'm just going to grab this footage that's on the bottom and drag that in. That'll become footage that can be swapped out in the actual Premiere mogrt. So there we go. That's in the mix. But this next one, we don't want to we don't want to be dragging this in. We don't want to drag clip B in. You want to go inside clip B and drag that footage in. So if this footage here is changed, then all instances of clip B will be changed. Now, of course, it does nothing for us if we don't test this theory. So if we come back to the project, we have the template here. I'm going to drag that down onto its own composition. We're going to close the Essential Graphics panel for now. And if we twirl down into the template, twirl down into the Essential Properties, you see these two little rectangles down here. Now that's the footage. Those are the footages that can be swapped out. So let's return to our footage bin. Let's get some palm trees down here and just drag that on top. Ooh, look at that. Haha. Gets swapped out pretty easily. Kind of like that. And let's swap out the other one. Make sure that that's working. Let's swap it out with this houses. So now here we go. Sunny LA. Postmodern house. We're rocking it here. So this here, we've done everything we need to do, right? We've put it together. We've got our effects. The things are working out. We can swap what for needs to be swapped. This thing feels long enough, right? Because we're hanging out for a bit, and then we're cutting to the other footage. So depending on when you want this transition to happen, you're going to be changing sort of the timing of this, of all of these particular things in here. But in order to export our template, again, we must return. We want to go Window, get our Essential Graphics back into the mix, and you just come on down here to Export Motion Graphics Template. It's going to ask me to save. You should be saving early and often. But when you export the Motion Graphics Template, whoop, it's going to tell you that trimming and applied time effects on media replacement layers will be ignored. And that is so if you're doing any time remapping or anything wacky with them, that's going to be overridden when you move this into Premiere. That's okay with me. Then you just pick the way you want to send this out. Do you want to put it on your local drive? Do you want to send it over to a particular library? Hit OK, and you're going to be good to go. You open up in Premiere, bring it in there, you're going to have a good time. But I'm looking at the clock. That's brought us to the end of time. So I must say, thank you for being with me. I hope you've enjoyed learning this. I hope this has been helpful and useful to you. And I want to see what you make. So go ahead, try this stuff out. Don't use 6 slices, use 7 slices, use 8 slices, chop up your footage, mash it together, export something, export it right out of After Effects if you want. If you don't want to do the mogrt step, don't worry about it. Show me what you're doing, show me what you're working with, and then send it over to the Discord. So that is down, links in the description to the Discord. So get that stuff to me. We'll be checking it out next Friday. So not the Friday coming up, but the one after that, after a rich full week. I'm also back at you tomorrow. So we are going to be doing some wonderful stuff tomorrow, still in After Effects. We're going to be creating some optical illusions using shape layers, one of my favorite features of After Effects. So we're going to be playing around, doing some pretty trippy stuff. I think you'll enjoy. And all of next week, we're going to be diving into some more editing-focused challenges. So stick around for that as well. And then after all of that, we're going to be reviewing it all on that Friday. So get it to me in the Discord. I want to see that stuff. Links to that in the description. If any of this was confusing, please download the project files, get your hands on those, and dissect how all of it is made. You'll see exactly how we made the example. You can download that, check it out, play around with it, remix it. Hopefully that gives you all of the foundational stuff you need to do to make this happen. All right, that's enough for me. We've got a rich full day of more stuff coming to you here on Adobe Live, so stick around for that, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye for now. Ooh, where's that button?